Hi guys, Alex here, BlueMoonRisingTV. I'm joined by the boys today, Elliot and Stephen. Now it's a lovely summer sunshine day in Manchester, so we headed down to Silver Keys. We're going to chat through the big issue of the day. Yaya Toure, is he staying at Manchester City or is he on his way out? I'm going to come to the boys. We're going to be trying to get to the bottom of this scenario. We're going to be asking Yaya Toure or Nana Toure, if you will. Now Yaya Toure, a Manchester City icon, scored some massive goals for City, but he is coming to 33. Elliot, is 33 too old to compete at the top of the Premier League?
No, it's not. It isn't too old. He's got a funny way about him, Yaya, in as far as the way that he moves and the energy that he expends. So, you know what I mean, don't you? It's like he can be accused of sort of plodding about the pitch a little bit. And like you said, when you need him, he's there. And when you've really needed him, he's always been there, despite him being a bit of an unpleasant watch at times. And he's the first person that the finger's pointed at when, you know, the midfield hasn't been as active as it could have been. He's got a lazy kind of look about him. That's just his style of play.
He's the least box-to-box midfielder of any box-to-box midfielder.
I mean, 100%. Yeah. But I think Pep will know that, having worked with him before. He knows what he's in for with Yaya, and he's 33, just gone 33. So, you know, I'd say 34, 35 would be too old. I'd say move him on. Where he'd go, I've no idea. China with everybody else, probably. But yeah, he's worth keeping hold of. Yeah, I think it'd be crazy to get rid of him at the moment.
I mean, it's one of those, isn't it? I mean, you know, in a world of Pirlos and so on, I mean, is 33 too old? I mean, you mentioned Pep Guardiola's attitude as well, and obviously with Pep, something we've talked about quite a lot on this channel is that he demands players to commit and give 100%. Is there going to be a mismatch between Yaya and Pep?
I think you'll want to, but give 100%. But I'm not sure if physically can anymore. But I'm of the opinion that he's an old 33. Like, I know there's a lot of people will point to the likes of Lampard and whatever, and maybe Pirlo and so on. But he's not a young 33. He looks kind of pretty knackered when he was 31 as well. And I do think he'd try. I think he'd make the effort to. But I think sometimes you have to kind of be cruel to be kind. And I do think he's kind of past his sell-by date. I do love him, totally. Go on, what are you going to say?
Do you think he's off his pace then, would you say? Because I would always say, I would agree with you to a certain degree, but then there is that level that I just talked about there of, well, that's his style of play. Yeah. So it's understanding when you watch him, all right, that's his style of play. All right, so that what we're looking at now and that 3 years ago, is he off the pace, do you think?
It's just he can't do what made him special to the same extent anymore. I mean, personally, I feel that we just have to at some point cut our losses, and Pep did it with obviously Ronaldinho and Deco quite famously when he just moved them on because he didn't feel, despite their talent, that they were what they used to be and maybe couldn't fit the shape. And I personally feel, love Yaya, but he's an old 33, and I think if we don't move him on now or don't make a decision now, then when are we going to do that? So.
But then also you say Ronaldinho and Deco did leave Barcelona but continued to be very special players at other clubs. At Bayern Munich he didn't really move anybody on. Now is that an indication that perhaps that Pep maybe regretted letting Ronaldinho and Deco go and maybe isn't going to go to the same drastic changes at City?
Well, they've just won, quite a few trophies the season before. So he probably, I remember reading how he said when he joined Bayern, the project nearly felt complete anyway. In general, in terms of there wasn't a vast overhaul needed, but it was about changing the philosophy of how the team plays. So if that's going to be a similar situation to City, instead of, I think he does need to overhaul to an extent. But if it's about changing how the kind of energy and the kind of philosophy of the club, then it's a question of whether Yaya then does actually fit into those long-term plans to move forward as a team.
Now, when we talked about İlkay Gundogan over the last couple of weeks, we actually compared him, or certainly I've compared him to Sergio Busquets in the way that it's similar sort of game and looks like someone that Pep's going to give the rhythm of the team to. Now, Busquets was the man that Pep brought through to replace Yaya. So is it that İlkay Gundogan is kind of an indication that maybe that decision's already made?
No, I don't think so. No, I wouldn't say so. I think if Tony Kroos turned up, then you'd start wondering. It would start seriously pointing in the direction of Yaya having been shown the exit. But I don't know how much movement there is on the Tony Kroos thing. It keeps popping up and disappearing again. It has all gone a bit quiet. I think the only problem I've really got with Yaya, well, one of the big problems I've got with him, and one of the problems that everybody's got with him, and that the club have got with him, I think probably, is his agent, who is, I don't want to talk out of line or anything, but his agent's a nightmare. The guy's a nightmare. He does nothing for Yaya at all. Financially he probably does. He bumps his fee up quite well, but all the sort of mind games and all that kind of, you would think that you would imagine it'll reach a point where the club in as much as Pep would go, you know what, bear in mind the club have put up with this for quite a few years, will go, you know what, this is a lot of mither, this guy. Is he still worth keeping hold of? You don't know, you know.
For me, Gundogan isn't necessarily a Yaya replacement. I think he's a kind of different kind of player. I think he's just a midfielder that if Yaya does stay, I think he'd probably play alongside Fernandinho and Yaya.
Well, that's the point I was trying to make, is that obviously Busquets and Yaya are almost kind of polar opposites in terms of the way that they play, but Busquets is more of this Pep Guardiola player.
He fit a role, didn't he? At the time, to us, I don't think even Barca knew that Yaya was actually this phenomenally good attacking midfielder as well, which that side of his game did. It was hinted at Barcelona, but it didn't develop fully until he was at Man City, when he got a license to kind of just be this beast that he was. And he did sit quite deep at Barca, and that's obviously where he learned to dictate play like he does, like no one else we've had for a long time. But for me, Gundogan, he could do a lot of stuff that Yaya does, and I don't think necessarily he's been bought to replace him. It might be that he's been bought to sit alongside him in a transitional kind of sense, as the team evolves. But
I mean, it's possible that this decision might already have been made for us, given the fact that where would Yaya go? I mean, he reportedly earns, depending on who you ask, between £200,000 a week, 250, possibly even £300,000 a week. He's one of the most highly paid players in the world. Yaya comes with something called an ego. There's certain leagues that he might not want to play in. I know PSG have been linked in France, and I'm sure they'd like to sign him. Mancini might want to stick him at Inter Milan, but Mancini might be leaving Inter Milan. Obviously China, but can you see Yaya playing in China?
No. I can't see him playing in China. I can't see him going to the MLS, and I can't see him playing in China. I can see him going back into Europe. I think a team like PSG would be great, or Fenerbahce or somewhere like that, where I think. I don't know.
The duck just made me laugh off camera. That's the best. Carry on. Yes, but anyway.
Stephen's watching the ducks.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, yeah, I just think if he goes, if he was to go, there's still quite a big hole in the team. There's still quite a big hole in that part of the park. Now, that's for Pep to work out himself. But as it stands right now, with who we've signed and who's confirmed that we've signed, I think there's just a massive gap there for Yaya, where Yaya would have been.
I think Inter definitely want him. I think there's loads of quotes from Mancini, and he's apparently said once again Mancini said he's one of the best midfielders in the world, and Italy haven't had a player like that in their league for a long time. I think he definitely wants him, but I think it's just a case of they're trying to do that Italian thing they do where he's like, God, can we have him for a tenner or whatever? No, you can't have him for a tenner because he's worth more than that. And they'll try and get him for dirt cheap. They'll try and get City to pay off his wages on loan or whatever. I don't think they can afford that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That'll be what stops that from happening. That'll be why he won't go to Inter. They haven't got the money. I don't think his agent or him are going to be looking for any kind of drop financially. They're going to be looking for that to stay the same or go up. And PSG could feasibly do that and might.
I mean, Dimitri Seluk's agent feels like the Katie Hopkins of football, just coming out with all this sort of just horrible shit to wind everyone up, but still come out and makes millions.
Yeah, he's a bastard, isn't he? He really is. He's a horrible, conniving, scummy man, and I dislike him intensely. He's even been slagging off Bergenstein recently for. He said it's scandalous that we signed Zinchenko. What does that even mean? What's he got to do with Zinchenko? Sorry, with Seluk. Yeah. We're signing Zinchenko. He just doesn't like people. I don't think Seluk. I think he just sits at home bitterly staring at boxes of money and just hating the world. But Yaya loves him. His son's named after him, isn't it? Apparently, Dimitri Toure. I don't know what he's called. But apparently he's named after him, which says all about how much sway this man has got over him as a person, which is a shame.
And that is because, when it comes down to it, and you're talking money, and Yaya is paid very, very well by Manchester City, he trusts the guy to keep his finances up. Do you know what I mean? And he trusts the guy to, if there is going to be a move, to keep in the wealth that he's accustomed to. Do you know what I mean? So that's why Yaya likes him. If you were a footballer and you had an agent, I wouldn't want a lovely agent who can come around and have a cup of tea with and have a lovely time. I'd want an absolute who's gonna go out there and fight for me, and fight me corner. And Yaya's got. I hate Dimitri, but Yaya, I totally understand why he loves him, and I totally understand why if Yaya does move on, it'll be for a lot of money, I think.
I just don't think Yaya is particularly intelligent. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but I think he's a little bit. He moaned about cake. I think he's a bit moody, a bit temperamental. I don't think he's the most mature of people, and that is one of my biggest worries about him. Is he going to be the kind of person that tries to fit into a squad thing, says, I can do it, honestly, I can be one of the lads, be part of the team, but then come 10 games into the season when he's not playing every game, is he then going to sulk? Is he going to cause problems? Yeah. And that's a big problem to have. I think you're right. And that's my big concern about Yaya. I think he will mean well intentionally, but I just think he's a bit of a child at times. I mean, he sulks, and I worry.
I mean, I know
Pep's not going to put up with that, though. I mean, Pep is not. I don't see Pep putting up with that at all for very long whatsoever. So what you were saying before is right. Cut your losses. Maybe cutting your losses now is perhaps the right thing to do, rather than wasting time on what could end up being slightly. I sound like I'm having a real downer, and I think we've all in the last 5 minutes sounded like having a real downer. Yeah, the guy's an amazing player and is a City legend without doubt. You know, one of the most important players we've ever had at the club ever.
Yeah, I know Walter Smith is at home watching this video now, sort of. I was just going to say turning in his grave, but he's still alive. Walter's fine, but Walter is one of Yaya's biggest champions, and is someone that I think in his eyes Yaya can almost do no wrong. But the way I look at it is that you look at some of the great sides, you know, the Wenger's Invincibles, I hate to say it, some of Fergie's peak sides. There's always been a policy of like, no dickheads, and it's kind of the whole idea that you just, you know, you behave a certain way in the manager's final. And Manchester City, I feel like we're sort of starting to outgrow it, where we had to put up with Yaya's ego, and we got rid of Adebayor, and Tevez was giving it the big uns and stuff. And these have all been fantastic players for us, but we've now got to a point where we can attract players, and we don't need to put up with someone who's going to be more trouble. And maybe someone like PSG, who are hemorrhaging players at the minute, need a big name.
You don't think they will?
No, they'll need him. They've got Verratti, haven't they? Who's even better. You've been covering form and all that. But I want to defend Yaya a little bit, to be fair, because I've just kind of badmouthed him a little bit. But I do think it is potentially possible, because anything's possible in football, that Pep could get inside his head and treat him properly as a player. Because one of the biggest bugbears in general the past 2 years is a manager who constantly exposed Yaya's weaknesses by his own formation. He played him in a two-man midfield, which never works. Yaya cannot do that anymore. But what Yaya can do still is pass the ball better than 99% of the players in the Premier League. He can finish still, he can score, he can still do those incredible through balls that we all know, and he probably can be a little bit sharper. I mean, personally, I think he looked a bit overweight last season. I think he didn't look fit. I think he looked tired often. And if you get him, and apparently Pellegrini, Guardiola has already got him in intense double training sessions. So if you get a little bit of life back into him, get him focused, get the right players alongside him, who knows?
Don't you think that Pep has got quite a lot of... I know he's a very one-on-one sort of personable manager, Pep. Do you not think he's got enough projects on his hands already at the club? Do you not think that there are enough players, Raheem Sterling probably being one of the main ones, that he's really focusing on thinking, right, Raheem Sterling, let's do something with this guy, let's work it with this guy. He's already got quite a few of those, and there's Yaya sort of in the wings. You know, you could see from Pep's mentality, it might be a bit like, you know what? Let's just get rid of this guy.
I completely agree with you, and this is why I'm a Yaya Toure, is that I think that you look at Yaya and you go, whilst he can do all of that stuff, he can also sit on the floor for 5 minutes because he's been tackled and he's unhappy about it, and he can also just sort of follow the ball around, sort of 20 yards behind everyone else, just sort of looking, you know. And he's one of these players. I don't know why, but I always remember on Match of the Day, and it was after Chelsea just conceded, and it was last season, and they looked and they highlighted and they said, look, there's 5 or 6 players and they've put their hands on their hips, and that is like the body language for I'm not responsible and I've got to deal with this. And Yaya is a hands on his hips kind of player and doesn't take responsibility for the team. And I think whatever a Pep Guardiola player is, I think it's someone who does take responsibility and works for each other. And I just don't think that Pep is going to invest all of that time transferring a player who's 33 years old when he wants to be looking at the players who are 22, 23, 24.
It could be he has no choice, though. And it could be also appeal to Pep's ego to have this player who's obviously immensely naturally talented and thinking, you know what, I can get the best out of him again. It could be that he looks at Yaya and thinks, well, do you know what, we had a bit of a breakdown of relationship at Barcelona. Because I'm a mature person now and he's grown up as he's an adult, you know, Pep, well, he always was. But, you know, now he's an older person, you might think, I can mend this kind of relationship. I can make him the Yaya of old and get at least a year. I don't know if that's what he'll do, but then he might also have no other choice because he might not be able to get rid of him because it's difficult to move on a player of that hefty kind of fee, isn't it? You know, with that money and that.
At that age,
So let's bring this up then. I'm going to come to you, Elliot, first. Yaya Toure or Nana Toure?
Well, despite everything I've just said, I would say Yaya Toure. I would say keep him for everything that we've just said. To me, what it boils down to is let's keep him for a season. If Pep can make it work within a season, and I know he's got his work cut out anyway, he's just coming to a new job. You know, we're slap bang in the middle of the transfer market. Obviously, this has all been going on behind the scenes as it is. But he's got a lot to work with. He's got a lot of players to work with. And I'd like Yaya to be one of those projects for Pep. I'd like to see whether that relationship could be fixed, whether it is broken down, whether his memories of Yaya are a bit kind of, you know what, I can't be doing with this guy. I don't like his agent because nobody does. And so I'm going to cut my losses and get rid of him. But I would say keep him for a season. I'll keep him for Pep's first season, that's it.
Elliot's giving it for a season. Stephen?
I'm not saying Yaya Toure. I'm not doing it, but I'll say no to Yaya Toure.
No,
Personally, no. I don't know. I think he's an incredible player. Respect everything he's done for the club, and I think he's a genius on his day. But I just want to see the club refreshed. I think it needs to weed out some of the I don't want to say bad eggs, but you know what I mean by that. Some of the kind of players are getting on a little bit, and I think we just could do with a complete restart. I think we've got a lot of young players who are coming through. We're signing a lot of young players. I think the likes of Gundogan, Fernandinho, even some of the academy lads like Alex Garcia could step in and be Peps' new Busquets. And I want to see that. I want to see something revolutionary. I want to see some new ideas, not the same things from we've watched for the last 2 or 3 seasons. I want to see a fresh impetus and a new Man City, because we've got it's a new era, so to speak, and I want to see that. And Yaya, for me, love you, man, but your time is up, and I think you should go somewhere. I don't know where.
Just go.
Good
Just
luck.
go.
Well,
He'll definitely go now.
I feel after that speech from Stephen. Well, now it's over to you. Let us know in the comments. Are you a Yaya Toure or a Nana Toure? Give it a like if you've enjoyed the discussion. This is BlueMoonRisingTV. Videos like this every day. Make sure you subscribe. See you next time, Blue.